Good Saturday morning to everybody and happy week 2 of the college football season. This is the Alabama pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm your host, Simone Eli, alongside this week, Mark Heim, the one and the only. Mark, how's it going? Happy week 2 to you.
Yeah, happy Saturday. Good to see you after a long high school Friday night. Here we are bright and early, bushy-tailed, we're ready to roll.
Yes, we are, guys. And Bama fans, I know that y'all are awake as kickoff is less than 2 hours, much to the disdain of much of college football. Alabama at Texas, 11 o'clock kickoff in Austin today. Going to be a warm one, I assume. I haven't looked at the forecast, but I can only assume that 11 o'clock in Austin, Texas is probably going to be a little warm. Kickoff at 11. Bama right now a 20-point favorite, so almost a 3-touchdown favorite for the Tide. When you look at just this game from an overview standpoint, Mark, obviously there's been so much hype this offseason surrounding so many different storylines, but one of the biggest, Saban versus a former assistant, this time in Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, so I think Jimbo Fisher tried to steal some of the headlines this offseason about the biggest game, and I still think that one is, but this week we're reminded just how big Alabama-Texas is, right? And it certainly helped that one anonymous coach out there decided to hand Texas a preseason number 1 first-place vote. So, yeah, there have been a ton of storylines. It's fantastic for college football. And, yes, the assistant coach storyline will continue. But, I think there are very few assistant coaches or former assistant coaches that have had the impact that Steve Sarkisian has on this Alabama program. And, he let it slip or let it be known that he's been game planning for Alabama for the last 3 months. So clearly he wants this one. And so I think Nick Saban will certainly counter.
I don't think I'm glad that he did not try to hide the fact that he's been planning for this one. He looked awful in this week's press conference. If you saw him, it looks like the guy hadn't slept in months. Probably leading up to this game. But there is no question the impact that Steve Sarkisian has had on the program when it comes to the recruits that he's brought in, obviously the impact he's had on Bryce Young and the quarterback situation, the offense. When you look at that sort of dynamic, does it make you think of Sark as less of a villain, maybe, so to speak, as you would think of like a Kirby Smart or a Jimbo Fisher?
Yeah, I think the rough start he's had in Austin certainly helps him be a little bit more of a sympathetic character, right, for lack of a better term. But this is a guy that also brought a bunch of former assistants with him, right? It's just not Sarkisian. It's Jeff Banks. It's Bo Davis. It's Kyle Flood. It's all those guys are now over there. So there's this idea that maybe they might have some sort of better knowledge or more intimate knowledge of this Alabama program than most, and they probably do. But I also feel like this week, and maybe that's why Steve Sarkisian wasn't looking so hot, because I felt like he was waving the white flag a little bit, saying, hey, this one game doesn't define us. And you're almost thinking, oh, here the excuses are coming already. So he's got his hands full. I think he knows he has his hands full. And I think he's trying to temper expectations here a little bit.
No doubt about it, guys. If you're just joining the show, this is the Alabama pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli alongside Mark Heim. Appreciate everyone tuning in. The Roll Tide back to everybody. Bailey Winnett comment here. Let's party like it's 09. I want to bring that up, Mark. What were you doing in 09? What do you remember about the Colt McCoy game? What do you remember about the national championship? I was in Ohio. So I didn't even, it wasn't even on my radar to know about Alabama football. I was playing basketball at Bowling Green. So I did not care at that point in my life. I was way too young to even really care about college football. Y'all don't criticize me for that. I'm just being honest with you, Mark. I want to know what you remember about that game and about that time.
Well, I think everybody remembers the fact that this was the one that started it all, right, for Alabama, and Texas was back. Texas is back every year, and Colt McCoy and that team was they were putting up a lot of points. There was a lot of confidence. They felt like Alabama did. Like this one was in the bag. This was how it was going to go. It was kind of a destiny type thing. And some young, very unfamiliar name known Marcel Darius goes in there and crushes Colt McCoy. He felt like it was, and he's already said, look, it was one of those things where he felt like, man, he got hit by a truck, but he felt like he was going to come back. And then he didn't. Yeah. And then all hell broke loose. And I think it was 24-6. But, in comes a freshman quarterback, and they kind of made it a little bit of a game. Mm-hmm. But it started this great, it's like the Marvel series, What If, right? It's the greatest episode of What If ever. Texas fans constantly want to talk about what if. What if Colt McCoy didn't get hurt? Mac Brown was asked this week, and he tried to sidestep the question. Mac's over there dancing in the North Carolina locker room these days. But finally, they pushed him on it, and he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely, we win. And, of course, Alabama had a lot of success running the ball that day. I mean, just ran all over Texas. So it's hard to think that they would have won, but it's one of those great college football debates. And in fact, it's going to be a topic this morning and leading up through the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's the last time that Bama and UT have played. And it's crazy to think about the trajectory of the two programs after that, where things have gone. Obviously, Alabama turned into a complete dynasty. And right now, speaking of dynasty, when you look at Bryce Young and what Bryce Young has done to this program, what he has, obviously a Heisman campaign a year ago, he's already making a case for it again. Patrick Greenfield behind the scenes is our producer, bringing up some stats right here. He's just been scary good, Mark, and there's really no other way to put it. Look at these numbers from Utah State. I understand it's Utah State, but this guy's mind, his ability to read a defense and execute what is necessary is just impeccable.
Yeah, he's very cool, calm, and collect. I mean, you see him, the way he extends the play by shifting in the pocket. He's a smart guy. He knows when to run. He knows when to throw it away. I mean, he's mature beyond his years, right? And I think you saw that even last year. He has even a better grasp of the offense. He knows where to go with the ball pre-snap. He is everything you want in a quarterback because he's got the cannon. He's got the in between the ears, and of course he's got the athleticism. And you saw it on the long run. And as a former basketball player, you have to like the Euro into the finger roll with the quick dap to save.
And he does it, yeah.
And he did it without hesitation. He can think on his feet. He can think midair. So he's really everything. You know, we had a discussion earlier this week, like ranking the Alabama quarterbacks that started for Saban over the years, and it's an impressive list, and he's right up there. I mean, you can make an argument for number one.
No doubt about it. Some of the offensive weapons, just who he has around him. You know, one thing about a point guard, one thing about a quarterback is that he makes everyone else around him look good. Bryce Young certainly does that. And when you look at the weapons that Bryce Young has, there's no question that it's impressive. Whether it's a transfers in, guys returning, or newcomers, all across the board, Mark, it seems like Alabama has exactly what they need right now when it comes to offensive firepower. And once again, I'm impressed by Nick Saban and his staff's ability to go out, find exactly what they need, put it together, and put together an offense that seemingly is going to hang 40 a night.
Well, you know, and he's warned people through the media for a couple years now about this whole transfer portal thing. I mean, he's not for it, but if we're going to do it, he's going to go out and he's going to beat you at it because he knows specifically what he needs. He's not getting guys simply to get them. I mean, he's going out there, and it's another case of the rich getting richer. And really, the only thing that's holding, if there is any negative to this offense, it's some of the guys don't have the game reps. But they're clearly talented. They know what they're doing. They're well coached, and they're explosive. And so he's just going to continue to create opportunity for this Alabama offense.
Well, I quickly want to get away from the Alabama offense and talk about some pieces that were on the previous Alabama offense who will now be suited up in a burnt orange in Jaleel Billingsley and Aji Hall. This has been definitely some interesting topics on social media. There has been a lot of drama, so to speak. We know that Saban is not a drama guy. That's typically why if you're going to not be a part of the program, you either break rules, break the law, or you cause drama on the team. Well, these guys have been at least a part of some of that. When you look at the dynamic of this, Mark, it certainly creates a fun storyline for us to talk about in the media. But how does this impact the game and the guys who are actually out there on the field?
I really don't think it's going to have much impact. I think if Agiye Hall gets on the field, and we expect that he will in some capacity today, I think, you know, the guys on defense will certainly know he's there, and will make it a point to make sure he's not a huge contributor. I think that's just human nature. Whether you're a football player, or basketball player, or whatever, you see a guy on the other side on the field, you're going to make sure you lock him down. Now, Jaleel Billingsley, I think, is even more interesting because he didn't play last week. Sarkisian comes out in the post-game press conference and says he's been suspended for 6 games by the NCAA. What I thought was interesting about that comment was he goes on to say it was something that he had done at Alabama. So the light bulbs go off, and now I think everybody wants to know specifically what happened. And I don't know if he threw out that last piece, that little nugget, just so folks in Alabama can feast on something other than maybe what ails Texas. But I think that's a really fascinating storyline there. I think Hall's going to play. Obviously, Billingsley won't.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We love the dynamic when it comes to former players, people that leave the program, how things pan out, and sometimes in a positive way. We saw last week at Utah State, a former Bama player, and everyone rallying around him. All right, let's talk about the defense. Will this be the first game? Well, it will be the first game that Bama's defense is challenged, so to speak, in some sort of way. Obviously, the Tide rolled over Utah State 55-0 last week. What type of challenges do you feel like Bama's defense could face today from a UT team that put up 52 points a week ago?
Yeah, so I think Texas skilled positions are really good, right? We talk about Quinn Ewers. He's a young guy, but he also threw an interception before he threw a completion last week. But he wound up with 225, and he threw for a couple scores there. Keelan Robinson obviously is talented. There's talent at the skilled positions. Where Texas is lacking, I think, is along the offensive line, and I think that's where it's going to wreak all sorts of havoc for them because Alabama's front seven. Texas won't see a front seven as good as this, and I think it's going to be very difficult. They want to go vertical. They want to get the ball down the field and push the ball down the field. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Simone. If you can't block them, you can't get the ball downfield. So I think they're really going to struggle. I think early, whatever. It's early. It's hot. It's a home game. They're hosting the number one. I think it's going to be competitive there for a couple of series. And I think Alabama's going to wake up and, you want to play now. Okay, we're going to play. I think it's going to be one of those type things. So I think he's building some things there, Simone. I really do. But I think it's going to take time. I think he understands that. And I don't know if Texas Longhorn fans feel that way. Sure. I'm sure Matthew McConaughey is ready for a big victory today. But I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, you talked a minute ago about all of the uncontrollables, so to speak. So it's going to be an early game. You got to go on the road. And Nick Saban was speaking today on College Game Day. I was watching Brighton early this morning where he said, at the end of the day, you have to embrace the challenges. You have to embrace what it is that is ahead of us. Texas is eventually going to be an SEC team right around the corner. This is just like going on the road in the SEC. And it's an early test. It's certainly an opportunity for Alabama to prove that they are the number one team in the country, like the preseason poll has them. Mark, how big of an opportunity is this for the Bama defense? How big of an opportunity is this just for the Tide program in general to make a statement on a national level early in the season? Because nowadays, Alabama didn't open the season in the Chick-fil-A Bowl over in Atlanta in a big old game that had all the national attention. Georgia did obviously put a beating on Oregon. Now it seems like it's kind of Alabama's time to say, hey, we're a part of this conversation too. Yes, to beat Utah State. Let's get a high caliber win now in week 2.
Yeah, I think those that are kind of casual college football fans will look at this and say this is a statement game. But there have been so many different talking heads that have come out and said, guys, don't even watch this game. I mean, they're a 20-point favorite on the road. When was the last time Texas was a 3-touchdown dog at home? I mean, it's just been forever. I think Ryan Leaf, the Pac-12 analyst, has said, don't even watch if you're a Texas fan. Stephen A. Smith talked about a beatdown was coming and Matthew McConaughey can't help you.
Mark. This all sounds like rat poison.
It is, but I think if enough people say it, you got to start believing or thinking some of it's going to happen, right? So yeah. I think there's certainly more to lose here than there is to gain for Alabama, and for Texas, it's a golden opportunity. I mean, when your governor comes out and starts betting the other, the governor of Alabama straight up, I might add. They're grasping for anything.
Yeah, Mark, you had a great story on AL.com this week about the governor bet going on. You gotta have a little bit of fun when it comes to Alabama, Texas, obviously both in the South, all the similarities between the two states. Just how fun was that story and just piecing together what that was all about.
By the way, for everybody listening, I want to thank Simone here personally for reading it. But I will say this.
Why did you do that to me? I was trying to give you a plug, and I take it back.
So no, I think it's great. And look, let's make no mistake about this. This is going to be a rivalry. This is going to be one of the great matchups every year in the SEC. It just won't be this year, right? Yeah. So the governor of the great state of Texas comes out and challenges via Twitter Kay Ivey some barbecue, some Texas barbecue, and some craft beer. And what I loved about Kay Ivey's responses, and she replied, and she's going to offer up some Archibald and Woodrow's and some craft beer from Tuscaloosa. It's going to be great. First of all, it's straight up, no points. So Abbott's like already behind the 8 ball, right? Yeah, but she took a shot. I don't think it was a not so subtle shot because she said, although your fans will definitely be missing out on the tunes of the $1 Million Band, I can guarantee the Crimson Tide will roll. So it's like she couldn't let it go. She just had to get that little jab in there. Now, he didn't reply. But so, yeah, that kind of thing is always a lot of fun. It's interesting, though, that Abbott was the one that I think initiated that bet. So, man's just asking for a hurting.
Got to have some fun with it. Speaking of the band, so Kay Ivey makes a comment about it. There's been comments all throughout social media, big social media topic. The band is not traveling to Texas, and this is controversial in the fact that Alabama is a school and a fan base that takes a lot of pride in their band. And, probably more than other schools, just saying. They're not going to be in Austin today. And it's just disappointing, but it's the way that the Big 12 operates, Mark.
Yeah, so it was the opponents only get a certain ticket allotment, which includes the band as well. I think it's like 5,000, but they put them in the upper deck. And so according to what we reported at AL.com, in the SEC, there are contracts that get you 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever the allotment is, but it gets you tickets in both the lower and the upper bowls. The Big 12 has no such contract. So the $1 Million Band simply said, due to the seating arrangements and the lack of ticket opportunities, they're just not traveling. And so it's unfortunate. We've seen this happen in the past with Texas specifically, where someone will take a picture of like the TCU band and it's way up there. I don't like it. I think college bands are part of the pageantry of college football. Put them down there. So it'll be interesting to see. I guess they're going to have to get rid of that policy when they enter the SEC in a couple years. But the $1 Million Band won't be there. It's not the first time they didn't travel with the team, but it's been a while. So it's unfortunate. It's been an interesting and fun storyline here. At the end of the day, I guess we just won't hear Ramma Jamma in Austin after the game.
But you're definitely right. That is part of the college game. It's part of what makes football great. And, Texas, Big 12, they have to do whatever they can to get a couple wins, I guess.
And then the flip side of that, Simone, is what happens on the return visit. Does Alabama put Texas's band where they normally put the opponent, or is this payback?
Alabama has too much class. Greg Byrne isn't about that life. He lets it play out on the field. He's not worried about the band. Band ain't gonna impact nobody.
Okay, we're recording that for prosperity. Hang on to that for Simone Eli's hot take next year.
Put that on the record. All right, guys, let's talk quickly before we go about games all throughout college football right now. Let's talk about in the SEC specifically. A big one at this evening. Kentucky and Florida going head-to-head. Georgia pretty much has a bye week against Samford. Pitt and Tennessee going at it. Mark, any games that you're keeping an eye on? Auburn plays tonight against San Jose State. They're at home for the first month and a half of their season.
Yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head on most of those. I think Florida Kentucky is intriguing because of the whole Anthony Richardson, Will Levis thing. I've never seen a more exciting 2-point play than Anthony Richardson's last week. Kentucky going again without Chris Rodriguez, that'll hurt running back. So I like Florida there. Tennessee and Pitt, I think, very interesting in with Hendon Hooker and the way he's been able to run, because Pitt's run defense was not great against West Virginia. And the Volunteers have put up some points here. I think they did 45 points in 4 straight games going back to last year. So Tennessee in a potential upset there. Actually, Wake and Vanderbilt might be tricky, sneaky good. Sam Hartman's back for Wake. He was out because of the blood clot. The Commodores are putting up some serious points, very un-Vandy-like. I think Wake probably gets them here, but that should be a lot of fun. So those are a couple of the ones that I have. And watch out. Let's see how A&M and App State play. App State had that great game against North Carolina. It was just a wow game last week, but I just don't think they stop A&M. I think they just won't see the ball. They won't be able to get off the field. So I kind of like A&M there, but all in the SEC this week for sure.
Yeah. Got a quick question from Jeremy Stewart. South Alabama is at Central Michigan in week 2. For those that have in-state interest, the Jags will look to take things on the road and get their second win of the season, Mark.
Yeah, we talk a lot of South Alabama down here, as you know, Simone, in Mobile. Kane Womack doing an unbelievable job with those guys. It would be an incredible story. We had the South Alabama quarterback on the air with us earlier this week. He's familiar with the MAC and all that. I think it's a tough call. It's a tough order, man. I'm not a betting guy, but I'm hoping for the best, but I'm prepared for the worst. How about that?
We will see.
That's as delicately as I can put it.
I like delicate. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the Alabama Pregame Show. I hope you're ready. I hope you have your breakfast ready. Hope you have your coffee poured, because we're 90 minutes from game time. And the great thing about this is when you have an early game day, the game ends, and then you have the rest of the day to do absolutely nothing. So if your wife is on you, or if your husband's trying to tell you to do this, like say, no, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to watch college football, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day. So y'all enjoy college football. It's early kick, 11 o'clock for Alabama at Texas today, to the top-ranked Tide, looking for their first road win of the season, of course, against Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Alabama Pregame Show from our time. I'm Simone Eli, and we will see you for the postgame show. Have a great college football Saturday.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.